Okay, so the title of this one is Skulls, Skeletons, and Scleral Ossicles. And hang on, I need to pin myself so I can see what I'm doing because I'm going to be taking my camera off the computer and showing you all kinds of fun and interesting things. And I will just start. So bear with me on this because focus is going to be a fun thing. So you're going to go for a ride, hang on, and we're going to start with this amazing specimen here and tell you a little bit about how we got this one. This is actually a spotted owl skeleton. We normally have salvage permits, but we have to have extra special permits for this because it's a northern spotted owl. It's a federally threatened species. The reason we have it, we have a specimen label down here. You can see it was collected by Eric Forsman. Ooh, sorry if it's going in and out of focus. And the back side of the tag. He's a spotted owl biologist. He's been studying spotted owls for decades. And basically this was a young one that they had banded. So you can see it's got its Fish and Wildlife band on it here. This is the normal band they put on when it was a nestling. And they also put on this color one so that visually from a distance you could see which individual bird it was. So they have color bands that have all different patterns and colors on them. So with binoculars, you can identify the bird because these bands, you can only identify the bird if you're holding on to the bird and can rotate that around and see all the different numbers. This bird was retrapped in July to put a radio transmitter on it like they did with many spotted owls and have done before and since. And this was one of very, very few individuals that happened to die during handling. And Eric has a domestic beetle colony, and domestic beetles will eat flesh. So he saved this one, put it in the domestic beetle colony. They ate all the flesh off, and he reassembled the skeleton. And hardly anybody assembles bird skeletons because it's really, really difficult. And I always wanted one, and he said, it's so much work, contact me when I retire. I remembered when he retired, I contacted him and he said, oh, I have this one sitting in the lab. And so we wound up with this, but getting it from Oregon to Minnesota intact was quite the endeavor. It wound up going in a special container. You may have seen that box labeled fragile on our Facebook page. That's what it came in, anchored in there, packed in packing peanuts. A couple of ribs broke in the meantime, but it did get here on a train, basically intact. So we're very thankful for our spotted owl skeleton. So we're going to start with the skull up on the top. So this is a bone. The skull itself is a bone. And the first thing you're going to notice is that's really porous on the top. And that means it's a young owl. An adult owl would have just solid bone, like all the other skulls you're going to see later on. This is what we call a skull that's not completely ossified. So the bone is still forming in there and getting hard. But in a young bird, it's porous like this. So that's a skull that's not completely ossified. Now on the tip, you see the beak here, or the bill, that keratin sheath that makes up the bill. That is not actually bone. And when you have domestic beetles preparing your bones for you, they don't eat that, so it's easy to stick it on and glue it back on. When we do skull preparation, we soak it in pond water. So there's bacteria in there, anaerobic bacteria that eat all the flesh away. And usually those keratin sheets kind of crumble or go to pieces. So our specimens don't normally have that, but Eric, because he uses dermestids, was able to save that. So you can see on an owl skull, there's a huge amount of space for eyeballs. And if you look at the top of it, anyway, there's not a whole lot of brain space. It's mostly eyeball space. And over on the side here, let's see if I can get a good angle here. This little insertion, play with the focus. Come on, we can do it. Anyway, this little bulb here is where the ear inserts, and that varies dramatically in size. There you can see it right there. dramatically in size between different owl species based on how much they use hearing for hunting. And the skull is very lightweight. Now, the neck. Now owls, as this is mounted, you see the neck sticking straight out. That's not how an owl normally holds its neck when it's standing still. This would be bent into an S shape. So everything from here to there is technically the neck. So those are the cervical vertebrae. And Eric's got this mounted like it's ready to take off, so the head may be extended in a position like that. But normally as they stand there, that neck is bent into an S, which makes it look like they have almost no neck. But owls actually have really long necks. So humans, we have 14 cervical vertebrae, or 14, no we don't. The owl has 14 cervical vertebrae. We have 7. And that's one of the reasons they can turn their head so far. I'm not sure if I can go underneath and show you the insertion here. Get to see my lighting in the ceiling. This is very fun to try and figure out. You can see where it inserts onto the skull, and please focus. Ooh, that's a little difficult to see. But that the top vertebra doesn't have as many projections as ours does, and that allows owls to turn their heads farther. There you can see a little bit better. It allows owls to turn their heads farther than we can. Now you always hear that owls can turn their heads 270 degrees, right? Most owls don't turn their heads 270 degrees. I've never seen an owl turn its head 270 degrees, and I've worked with owls for over 20 years. It's not a comfortable thing for them to do, and not all owls can do it. So we started playing around with dead specimens to see if their heads physically rotate that far. And like a great horned owl, for instance, physically can't. A little bit more than 180. So from the front to the back is as far as it goes. But when they talk about 270, they mean front, side, back, and then all the way over to this other side. So a few owls can do that, but it's really rare. Not something they normally do. It's like humans standing with their heels touching each other and then the toes pointing at opposite walls. Really uncomfortable. Not everybody can do it. And why on earth would you do that? Except for if you're a ballet dancer or you're going through a cave passageway that's super narrow. Not a comfortable or a normal thing to do. Going down, you can see here's where the shoulder is. And this shoulder is actually kind of inside the body cavity. This isn't something that you see. When a bird is sitting there, let me see if I can do this. When a bird is sitting there, what you see is what looks like their shoulder is actually their wrist. It's not their shoulder. The shoulder is actually kind of inside the body cavity here. So that's not something you're normally going to see. They have a humerus, just like we do, and an elbow, just like us. They have a radius and an ulna, just like humans do. But the difference with an owl is for us, the ulna is smaller and the radius is bigger. For an owl, the radius is smaller and the ulna is bigger. And there we go. This is where all of the secondary feathers attach, is along the length of that ulna. This is where all of the secondary feathers attach. Then we have the wrist, which is a complicated little joint here. Not something birds want to mess up. And just like us, there's a lot of bones in there, except they're fused. A whole bunch of fused bones in owls. And then this is the hand. This weird conglomeration of strange bones there are their hand bones. And the one that sticks out by itself here, that's the thumb. And the thumb bone is where the alula feathers attach. So if you see a photo of a flying owl and you see some feathers that are sticking out a little bit, that's the alula feathers. There's 3 or 4 feathers that attach there, and they can adjust those to help with their flight. But all the primaries attach onto this really weird fused hand bones. Then if we go, and wait, this is kind of fun because you can go like way up into the body here. These are the ribs. Somebody asked me once in a program, how many ribs does an owl have? I have no clue. So we could count here if you want, but you can see there's two different parts that have a joint in the middle that I had to glue. Let's see, I have to be very careful with what I'm doing here. So you can see where that joint is glued in the ribs. So there's the part that projects off the spine, and then there's the part that comes together to the sternum down here. So in owls, there's two different groups of owls. There's the Titanidae, which is the barn owls and the ones that look like them. And then there's Strigidae, which is everything else on the planet, which is most owls. And the sternum is one way you can tell those apart. And in most owls, there's two bumps here, two incisions. I guess, what do you call it? There we go. So you see there's two holes that go up into the sternum. One there and one there. That's in the Strigidae. A Titanidae, like Piper, the barn owl, would only have one of those, not two of those divisions like that. So that's the sternum. And then you have the keel, which sticks off. So this is where all the flight muscles attach. Come on. I can get this focused. And the keel sticks out from the sternum a lot. Focus, there we go. And if you find an injured bird, sometimes when we pick up injured birds, one of the things we'll do is feel the keel, because that sticks out. Well, it was focused. And if a bird is emaciated, you can feel the sides of the keel. If they're well fleshed out, you only feel that leading edge of the keel. Sorry, that's just simply not wanting to focus there, but hopefully you get the idea that it sticks out. So if you can feel the sides of that bone, that means the bird's really, really thin and not doing well. But if it's muscle, then you can only feel just the tip of it, because there's muscle on both sides, the bird's doing well. Now, you've probably all seen the Facebook posts about owl legs and how long owl legs are. Owl legs are indeed really, really long. Now, they don't normally stand like this. This is a bird getting ready to take off. Normally, when they stand, it's in a very squatty position. So the femur, they have the same femur as we do, would be almost horizontal in a bird that is standing. And then this is the knee joint, which you don't really see. This is almost up into the body cavity of the bird. Because when we look at a bird, we say, oh, look, the knees bend backwards. This is not the knee. This is actually the ankle down here, or the hock joint, way down there. The knee is way up here, and you don't see owl knees. These are some fused bones. So although they have a femur, just like us, this is the there's a tibiotarsus and the tibiometatarsus. So these are fused bones. This, technically, everything from here down to the end is the foot. From here on down is the foot. And we'll be talking about feet in next week's program. And when they put a band on, this is actually around, they just call it the tarsus, but it's technically part of the foot that the band goes onto. And foot bones, I'm going to put this down and grab just a foot bone. Let me look at that one for a second. I glued together some foot bones years ago. Since then, well, they've kind of come apart to some degree. But there's a lot of bones, and they're very different in each toe. So even though some of these are have come apart, the epoxy has come apart. You can see that one didn't have too many bones. This one doesn't have too many bones. This one has this weird, bizarre sliding attachment. It's really hard to find the articulating point of it. And then the toe that's reversible, that owls can move forward and backward, has a whole lot of bones in it. I think this other one shows it better. There we go. You see all those bones? A whole bunch of small hopefully you guys aren't getting seasick here. There. Well, it was in focus. There you go. A whole bunch of bones there. So they can rotate that one forward or backwards. Owls typically hold their rear toe backwards. But then you can see the talon. It's actually got bone in it. And then it's got that sheath on the outside. So it's just like a dog claw or a cat claw. But the bone is actually sharp. And you can see there's that weird sliding attachment. This bone right where my thumb is. Come on. I'm going to make it focus. I'm going to be stubborn. So not that front toe, but that back attachment. There's that weird bone there. Right under my thumb, this one. It's weird. Like, how does it even attach? Most bones have an easy to find attachment. Like, okay, yes, it goes there. That one was like, where the heck does this bone go? Now, cool things about leg bones. Look at this. If you look down, it's kind of like this tube that holds all their tendons. So there's very little muscle in the foot at all. It's mostly just tendons. So up here, higher in the leg, you've got the muscles. They flex and the tendons slide up and down in this part of the bone. And even on the front of the leg, can we get this in focus? There's a little bone that keeps the tendon where it's supposed to go. You see that little bone there? The tendon inserts inside there, and it keeps it in place. So the tendons have very defined places to slide on the leg bone. Now, you've always heard that owls or birds have hollow bones. Not all of their bones are hollow. So although this leg bone, the tarsus, where you would put the leg band, let me see if I can get this focused. Come on. If you see that, it's not hollow in the middle. It's cut in cross section. Come on. But there is marrow in there because they have to make red blood cells. There you go. You can see the leg, that part of the leg bone is not hollow. So a lot of the wing bones are hollow, but not all of their bones are hollow because they have to be able to make red blood cells. Now, that's not a lot of marrow, but apparently it works for them. Oh, I see.
Well, there's a question.
Yes.
The question is, yeah, do they have kneecaps?
Let's look. Good question. I'm not sure if this is a separate bone. Let me put my hand back here. That looks like it's a separate bone. That may be a kneecap. Come on, stay in focus. But it looks a little bit different than ours. I mean, it looks like it sits above the joint. But, so I would give that a qualified, maybe that's a kneecap. I don't know. There's not a whole lot out there about owl bones. So, good question. Don't know the answer. Skulls. We have a whole bunch of skulls. And skulls, owl skulls are really, really cool. So this is a snowy owl skull. And if it comes into focus, you'll see it has SNOW. That's the 4-letter code for the snowy owl species. All birds have a 4-letter code for scientists to abbreviate, so you don't have to write out snowy owl every time. But that one is a very appropriate one. And then the number underneath that, there we go, is our accession number. So we got it in 2017, and it was the 12th bird specimen that we got that year. That's how we keep track of the data. So we have a database that will have all the data for this specimen. I also have a tag in with it. You can see a snowy owl has a wide skull, quite a wide skull. This doesn't have the lower mandible. Here's where, back here, where my thumb is where the ears insert. And you've always heard that owls have asymmetrical ears. It varies by species, and only a very few of them are asymmetrical in the skull. Mostly it's just the fleshy parts that are asymmetrical. You can see that's a really wide head. So this is a snowy owl. This is the roof of the mouth here. Here is where the spine attaches and the spinal cord goes into the skull. If you look at this thing, there's a lot of space for eyeballs. Not a whole lot of space for brains in there. When you get into some of these bubo species, if you take the brain out and you put it next to the eyeball, the brain is about the size of one eyeball, or it might even be a little bit smaller than one eyeball. And a very cool thing about owls, if you're wondering what scleral ossicles are, it's the eye bones. That is in the eyeball of a snowy owl. All owls have these, all birds have these. A lot of reptiles have them. I think amphibians have them too. We mammals don't. But in owls, the scleral ossicle, all of these individual bones are very enlarged and tubular. So it makes their eyes extremely big, and literally they give the shape to the face. So this inserts something like that in there. And that's how their eye, that's in the ballpark of how it goes in their socket. So they have huge eyeballs, but the side of their face is literally the side of the eyeball. So snowy owls and great horned owls, these bubo species, have very large scleral ossicles. Let me pull out a different species. Hang on. This is a boreal owl, and boreal owls have the most asymmetrical skulls of any owls. They're an Agolius species. So let me see if I can get it flat here or close. If you look, ooh, come on here, focus. So do you see how down there you've got the ear bulb down low, and over here you've got the ear bulb up high? The skull is grossly asymmetrical because their ears are so incredibly asymmetrical, and that helps them triangulate their sound better. There, you can see it a little bit better. This one has a lower mandible just attached by a little bit of a tendon, so that's the lower part of the bill that you see. One thing I don't have with this, ooh, and I think Eric doesn't have on the spotted owl either, is birds all have a hyoid apparatus, which is tongue bones. Literally, they have bones attached in their tongue and to the back of their tongue. And those would be in that middle part there. So that's a boreal owl. I should show you a pygmy owl. Pygmy owls are not the smallest owls in the world, but they're one of the smallest owls. Just teensy. Cleaning one of these little skulls. Thankfully, it's the bacteria doing it. But if you look at their ear bulbs, these little teeny weeny things on either side of the skull, they're a diurnal owl. They are not active at night. They're active during the day. So if you want to see a pygmy owl, you go out during the day. And they mostly hunt birds by sight. So they don't have much of a facial disc. They're not depending on hearing. So they have weensy little ears. Tough little birds. They can kill a bird that's 2 or 3 times as big as they are. One other thing I want to show you quickly here. There's always way too much stuff to talk about. 2 more things. A long-eared owl skull and a short-eared owl skull had this really unique flat spot here on the side of their skull it's kind of above the eye, and this flattened spot is something you find in the Asio species. So that's long-eared and short-eared owls. They have enormous ear slits. The slit on their head literally starts at the top of their head and goes all the way around to their chin down on the bottom. It's insane. But this is where the ear inserts. They've got this flat spot here that probably helps accommodate. They have an extra flap, huge flap of skin that helps direct sound into their ears. So that's a long-eared owl. And I want to show you a barn owl, because barn owls have like ski slope foreheads. They look totally different than other owls. Other ones are really blocky and chunky. Look at the ski slope on that forehead. Come on. If I can get it in focus, but you can see what I'm talking about. The other ones are just real bulbous, but a barn owl is slender and slopey. It's got the two little bumps up here. Oh, there we go. But it's very, very sloped. That one just doesn't want to focus. There we go. That's the barn owl for you. So it looks really different than all the other owl skulls. Okay, now I'm running a little bit behind schedule, so I will shut up for a bit and entertain some questions. I do have other skulls if you want to see some other species, but let's see what we get for questions. Sorry, I'm going to put this back on the computer. I find this extremely interesting myself, because one of the things that's cool about owls is there's so much stuff that we don't know. Joe, hey Joe, do you want to show your scleral ossicle that you're working on? Your
Sure.
thing and the giant eyeball?
I'll show my scleral ossicle. So I've been building a model eye, because everybody has a giant human eyeball. Nobody has a giant owl eyeball. So it's got the nice bones here made out of that material you make splints out of. So it bends. This is the iris. If you were in school in the last 20 or 30 years, you have these book covers. This works really nicely for the iris. The lens is basically just a ball, and that sits inside the eyeball. You can see it poking out through the, through the iris a little bit. And then the cornea sits on top like that. So the cornea is really round, and that's a lot of what you see when you see the eye. The iris is actually flat, it's not round. And that's the same as our eyes, actually. So our iris is flat, and then we have the cornea over it, but makes it look round. So.
Okay, I see we have a bunch of questions in here. Let me scroll back. We are going to bring out a live owl after we finish a few of the questions. How many types of owls are there? Byron asks. Good question, because Heimo Mikkola, who authored the book Owls of the World, gave a 1-hour presentation on that topic. And the answer is nobody knows for sure exactly how many species there are. On the low end, 220. On the high end, maybe 275, but probably somewhere in the ballpark of 250. They're still playing around with genetics, and then you have the splitters that say, no, these are different, and the lumpers that say, nah, they're the same. So there's lots of arguing about that. Oh, the tailbone looking curved on the back. So the tailbone is officially called the pygostyle, and the tailbone isn't necessarily curved so they can sit on branches. That's where all the tail feathers attach, is onto that pygostyle, onto the tailbone, and that helps adjust where the tail is when they're flying. So it doesn't really have anything to do with sitting for them. Do all species of owls have the same number of bones? I don't even know how many bones owl skeletons have. This probably isn't all of them because it doesn't have a hyoid bone. So good question, but I can tell you that they don't all have the same number, because those scleral ossicles, the eye bones that I was showing you, different species have different numbers of scleral ossicles. So if they have different number of eye bones, then some species must have different total number of bones. So it's probably different, but I couldn't tell you how many are in a skeleton. Scleral ossicles, of the ones that we have, I wrote some notes down. There's some that's iffy, did I lose some or not? But 16 was the highest and 12 or 13 was the lowest, depending on species.
My giant owl eye is a great horned owl, so it has 15.
What other questions do we have? Oops. Oh, nostrils of owls. I can't tell you a whole lot about their nostrils, other than in the barn owl, you can see through their nostril right there. And you don't really see them. They're mostly covered by feathers and rictal bristles. But in a barn owl skull, you can see through them. But you can't really so well. Oh, you can a little bit in the snowy owl skull. So they're different in different species. They do, well, everybody says they don't have a sense of smell. They have a sense of taste, and usually they're linked. So I don't know. I've never seen an owl reacting to smell. Definitely seen them reacting to taste. Let's see. Were there other questions? Yeah, owls do sneeze. Let's see. Byron, is this a second part for barn owl mice bones? Or did somebody answer that question already? Since we're moving along on time, I will turn it over to Joe, and if there's other questions to answer later, I'll do that, but I'm gonna go get a live owl to bring in. So I'll turn it over to Joe for a while while I go get a bird.
Sounds good. So I am going to give you a tour of our website. I'm going to share my screen here. There we go. So hopefully everybody can see it. This is our homepage. Our website is internationalowlcenter.org. Right now, yes, we are closed. You can see farther down some of our upcoming events. Over here on the sidebar, programs and events is the first item that goes over all kinds of different programs that we have going on. Future plans, we do, like Carla said before, we do intend to build a permanent facility, and that link kind of goes over what we plan to do. Our research, this is pretty cool. We are doing research on all kinds of things, but mostly with great horned owls. So there is a live cam, and we're going to click on that here. I'm not going to open it because I don't want to lag out my computer, but you can check this out. You can watch Rusty and Iris, our great horned owls. You can chat on our YouTube channel. You can chat with Maxine and Teach and all kinds of people from our chat. DIY activities. If you're stuck at home, we've got some great things you can do. You can find out what kind of owl you would be. You can do crafts. You can build an owl nest box. We have coloring pages and puzzles you can print out and take care of there. I found an injured owl. This is owlet season. We're getting tons of calls about injured baby owls on the ground. And most of them are fine. But if you do find an owl, you're not quite sure about it, you can go to our website and go here under What Do I Do? And there's kind of a step-by-step, what do you do if you find an owl? If you are in the area we're in Minnesota, Iowa, what other states are nearby? Wisconsin, yeah. You can call us. We can help with that. If you're not, we do have listed here, and it's also under I Found an Injured Owl. There's a list of rehabbers. So if you find an animal, actually, it doesn't have to just be an owl. We have a list of pretty much all of the rehabbers that we could find. So say you're in Idaho, you could call the Idaho Wildlife Rescue or Idaho Department of Fish and Game. Maybe you're in New Mexico. There's a lot of options here. So you can go through there and see what kind of places are available to help. Now, maybe you want to help owls. You can learn how to live an owl-friendly life. You can, come on. There's a really cool video by the Raptors Are the Solution group. You can learn about things you can do to keep owls safe in the wild. Learn about owls as pets. Spoiler alert, they do not make good pets. Owl myths and FAQ. If you want to learn about us, well, you can't visit right now, but you can see what our facility is like. You can check out what our owls are doing, what kind of owls they are, and things like that. Learn about us as people. If you want to support us, if you like what you see, if you like us on Facebook, you can become a member, and that's here under memberships. All members to the Owl Center get free admission to the Owl Center once we're open. For a year, you get free admission to our Festival of Owls in March, which is a blast. It's a 3-day all-owl event here in Houston, Minnesota. It's a lot of fun, so I definitely recommend checking that out. If you're a member, you get discounted admission to a couple of other places. You can bring your kids if you have certain levels. If you are a higher level member, like here we have the burrowing owls and above, you can actually get a card with a feather from our Eurasian eagle owl, because Uhu is not native to North America, so it is legal for you to have her feathers. Any native bird, it is illegal to have their feathers if you're in the US. So if you want to be a member, you can do that right here. You can join through our online store. You can join by mail. You can join right in the website through PayPal. If you don't want to be a member, you can just donate. That's right here under Support Us. You can donate however much you want. You can buy dinner for the owls. So it does cost us quite a bit to feed our birds. Nope, my cat just tried to jump up on the computer. So you can buy dinner for a night, for a week, for a month or more, or however much you want. Let's see. We do have resources for educators if you're interested in helping teach people about owls. We're planning an owl conference coming up next year, hopefully. And our store is pretty cool. You can buy all kinds of owl merch here. We've got shirts and hats and socks and postcards and books and magnets and coffee and all kinds of things. I just did inventory last week, so I know we have most of that stuff. We've got our new arrivals here. We have owl playing cards, and 2 of those cards have pictures of our great horned owl Alice on them, so I definitely recommend checking that out. So you can check out what we have in our store. You can buy gift cards if you want. You can get memberships and donations here as well. Otherwise, that's pretty much all we have for the website. Do we have any other questions that I can cover? Oh, there's Piper.
Right, let me get the camera angled a little better. Yeah, here's Piper. She's not used to being in the house, so she might be kind of like, what's going on? So this is Piper the barn owl, and we can't see her bones, but the one thing you can see on a barn owl that you can't see well on a lot of other owls is just how long their legs are. They're really long and leggy, and a lot of owls are, but they've got feathers that cover up their legs so you don't see them. So barn owls are not really designed for cold weather like many of the other owls are, that have really dense feathering that goes way down. If you look at her toes, can you see that they just have bristles on them? They're not densely feathered at all. Another reason that they're not suited for really cold weather. So when it gets cold here, Piper does sometimes have to come in the house, but she's not prohibited. She's prohibited from coming in this room. She has to stay in the kitchen, and having an owl in the kitchen is not a great thing. So it's a bit tortuous for everybody involved when it's way below 0. But otherwise, she's got heated perch, and she's got a heating pad under her hide box. And you can see as she's looking at things, she kind of rocks her whole body sometimes, which is kind of cute. And you can't see that ski slope forehead that she's got on her skull there because it's so densely covered with rictal bristles right in front of her face. Females tend to have more spots than males do, and there was a paper that showed that females that have more spots were better at producing healthier young than females that had fewer spots. She's a fairly dark barn owl. Some can be very white on the front. She's kind of more of a toasted marshmallow color. And on the back, are you going to show them how far you can turn your head? Her back is actually quite a bit darker. What are you looking at? How far does your head go, Piper? See, she didn't want it to go more than halfway around. That wasn't real comfortable for her. What do you think? And we have her, she was hatched in captivity out in New York. Barn owls have kind of disappeared from the whole northern part of their range over the years. And there you go. There were some reintroduction programs that were tried in some places, and her parents and grandparents were part of a reintroduction program in New York years ago, and the program had to close, and they, barn owls are very good at making babies. They're kind of into production more than maintenance. So they have a lot of babies. In the US, it can be like 5 to 7 a year. In other parts of the world, which are probably technically slightly different species, it can be more than a dozen. But a barn owl in someplace warm with a lot of food, like maybe California in really good years, can have 3 batches of babies per year. And they're sexually mature at 7 months of age. So really different than other owls. So anyway, they make lots of babies. And barn owls basically have to be raised by people from a young age to be comfortable being an education bird. Otherwise, they just really despise people and never really get over that. So she was hatched in captivity and raised to be an education bird. And she thinks I'm her mate, which can be very cute for me. Also very demanding because she doesn't like it if I'm not here. And very dangerous for other staff when I'm not here and somebody else has to feed her. So literally there's an outside feeding door. Yeah, Joe does not like doing that. There's an outside feeding door so they don't have to enter her aviary, because she literally is the most dangerous of our birds. She will go straight for the face, talons out. Yeah, literally like trying to rip somebody's face off. So all those cute, fuzzy YouTube videos you see of people cuddling their owls. See, Piper will tolerate this stuff because she thinks I'm her mate, and this is something a mate would do, is preen her around the face. And that's why she tolerates it, because it's natural, it's an instinct-based thing for her. So a mate would do this. Great horned owl imprint, you can't do this. They might tolerate it, but they don't like it. Piper totally eats it up if you preen around her facial disc. She just kind of, oh, that's nice. And isn't that cute? Until you have to be gone or somebody comes over and then she wants to rip their face off. So not really safe. She's actually the most dangerous of our owls. Questions about Piper?
Someone asked, how tall is Piper?
I think she's right around a foot tall, maybe just a little bit taller than that. So medium-sized owl, but very slender for an owl. Barn owls are not plump like most owls we think of.
Someone asked, where do we get our owls from and how many do we have right now?
We have 7 owls currently. So our first 3, Alice, Rusty, and Iris, they're all great horned owls that are permanently injured and non-releasable. Those all came from the Raptor Education Group in Antigo, Wisconsin. And then the other 4 that we have were all hatched in captivity for different reasons. So Ruby, our great horned owl, is one of Rusty and Iris's kids. So we weren't allowed to release after the first year. They don't just allow people to release owls. They're pretty restrictive about that. So she was raised to be an education bird purposely, so that we could look at the vocal development of a human reared bird versus a parent reared bird. And so we would have a younger education bird, because Alice is 23 and she's retired now. She does not like being handled. She's got arthritis, which some people can relate to. So arthritis in the knees and in her bad wing. So we needed a younger bird. So that's Ruby. And then we have Uhu, the Eurasian eagle owl. So she's not native to the United States. You'd have to go to Europe or Asia to see them in the wild. And they are in the United States being bred in captivity for education. And we got her from a facility in Massachusetts that closed. And she works for us. So she's kind of a gentle giant. She's very well socialized. So owls, when they're raised by people, are much more comfortable as education birds than those that are wild injured. If they've grown up to be an adult in the wild, owls don't generally adjust to change really well, but if they've been raised with it, they're much more comfortable with it. And so we have Piper, who's from a breeding program, and then we have JR, the eastern screech owl, who came from the Illinois Raptor Center. They had 2 non-releasable screech owls used as education birds. They thought they were both females, so they were being housed together, and then there were eggs, and females lay infertile eggs, so they didn't think anything of it. And then they hatched. So again, they don't just grant permits for release. So they were placed as education birds, and we got their first one that was placed. So that's JR, the eastern screech owl. So I think I got through all of our birds. Other questions?
Robin asks, how long does a great horned owl live?
Great horned owl in captivity in the wild can be different. So in the wild, it varies dramatically that first year, but maybe an average of 50% make it through the first year. Some years much more than that if there's a lot of food and good weather. Some years way less than that if there's not good food or good weather. Once they make it to adulthood, they do fairly well. The longest we know in the wild was 28 years, and there were a couple that made 28 years. And I think there's only a handful that have been documented from band recoveries. Oh, we're gonna poop. I have floor covering here. Owls poop. One of the reasons they don't make good pets. You can't potty train them. In captivity, a great horned owl, if doing well, will go into their 20s or sometimes even early 30s. No, you have to stay here, dear. She's thinking, oh, I could go check something out here. Other questions?
GRK asks, what is your favorite type of owl and why?
Well, for me, it's great horned owls because of Alice, and she thinks I'm her mate. And whoa, stay put, stay put, stay put. I've learned so much from her about great horned owl vocalizations, and we have wild ones in the area. I'm doing this to get her to chill so she doesn't want to try and fly somewhere, because she's tethered, so she doesn't get to fly around the room. And I don't want her to bait against her jesses. But great horned owls, don't tell Piper, are my favorite.
Let's see. Do we do anything in particular with the pellets they produce?
We do save their pellets and then heat sterilize them. I used to bake them in my oven. Ew. Leaves a really bad smell for about a day in your house. So now there's a teacher at a neighboring school that has an oven with a vent hood above it that sterilizes the pellets for us. And we use those for pellet dissections, special pellet dissection days at the Owl Center and during the Owl Festival. And we do sell those pellets in our online store and in our gift shop. You can sit still, Piper.
Shara asks, what do we feed them in captivity?
Okay, so the bulk of their diets is rats. JR mostly gets mice. And then we supplement with some other things too. So occasionally a squirrel or a rabbit or quail. But the staple is rats. So every night I get to cut up lots of rats and take the stomach and intestines and liver out because they don't eat that and they just fling it around and I would have to scrape it up and clean it otherwise. So another reason owls don't make good pets. So for over 20 years, virtually every night of my life, I've been cutting open dead animals.
Do we breed our own rodents to feed them?
We do not breed our own rodents. That's its whole other stinky ball game. So we're very lucky. There's a rat breeder about half an hour away from us, so we can just literally go pick them up. So I'm quite happy to have him breed the rats for us.
Earlier there was a question, what kind of things do we find in different kinds of owl pellets? Oh,
varies dramatically by species. So great horned owls are generalists. Yeah, you stay put, stay put. You can find anything in a great horned owl pellet. It could be a cat, skunk, squirrel, rabbit bones, voles, beetle, elytra, the wing covers for beetles. Screech owls, the same. I found bat bones in screech owl pellets, Barn owls are going to focus more heavily on mice and rats and voles, things like that. You know, if you had a pellet from a pygmy owl, it's going to be mostly bird bones. So it really varies by species. So a lot of the, if you're going to buy pellets for a dissection, they normally give barn owl pellets because it's usually mouse, rat, vole. So the diet is more focused in a barn owl. Because trying to identify prey remains in a great horned owl pellet can be really wild, crazy, because it can be almost anything.
And it is almost 11 o'clock, so I'm not sure if you want to wrap up with Piper or what.
And did you take them through? You know, we're just doing these for free, for fun, as a way to reach people during COVID when we can't be open. So the things you can do to help and support us, if you like what we're seeing and what we're doing, buy stuff in the gift shop, because then you get something cool and that actually supports our educational efforts. You can buy dinner for the owls, because the owls still have to eat even if we're not open. Thank you very much, Piper. Stay put. Or become a member.
I did get through the whole website, so.
Great. So you know how you can help us. And hopefully you'll check out the section on how to live an owl-friendly life. So there's things you can do to help make the world a better place for owls, including using traps instead of poison to control rodents, leaving dead trees standing so they have nesting sites. You can put up artificial nests. We're just putting up some artificial nests for barn owls. If you go on our Facebook page, you'll see that Piper has been testing some barn owl nest box designs, which was interesting because the one design we were going to put up, she couldn't get into the hole. So we actually had to go with a larger hole size. So she's helping with some research too. So there's a lot of things that you in your personal life can do to help owls. So our goal is, hopefully you're going to say, wow, these owls are amazing. What can I do to help? And then go to our website and say, hey, you know what? I can do this and I can do this. And you can actually help personally make a difference rather than just support us and then we do things. We want you to be empowered to make a difference in your own life to help owls, because we're their biggest problem, but that means we're their greatest hope. We can make changes that are going to benefit owls in our lives. I see there was a question that came in at the end here about barn owls from Bob Kissel. Barn owls are coming back to Minnesota. Is that true for wild barn owls? I live in southern Indiana and we have to put up barn owl boxes, but we're towards the northern end of the range. Yes, they are coming back in Minnesota. We actually have wild ones that Piper talks to. Last week, she had one here for a whole entire week. Our acoustic monitorings set up for our great horned owl breeding project has picked up barn owls. We actually now have remote acoustic monitoring stations set up to elsewhere about 1 kilometer away, and those have been picking up wild ones. And the goal with those remote monitoring setups is that we're going to move them to different locations and find out just how many barn owls are showing up in Minnesota. Last year and the year before, we had some breeding in northwestern Minnesota. There was a roadkill that we got from Chatfield, Minnesota last fall. About a year ago, last spring, there was one just across the river in Wisconsin. Oh, are you going to preen now? That would be nice. Yeah, you go ahead and preen. So they are showing up in Minnesota in higher numbers, and I assume elsewhere in the Midwest, but they're just really hard to detect, which is why we're using the passive acoustic monitoring and trying to put up nest boxes, because then you know where to look to find them. Piper's looking right at the cam. Do they migrate? Good question, and I don't think anybody can answer that concretely. So there's some thoughts that they barn owls might migrate in the northern part of their range, but I don't think that's been proven one way or the other. In warmer parts of their range, they don't. The northern parts, that's something we need to figure out yet. Nobody knows for certain. Very good question. Any other questions?
There was a question a little bit earlier about whether owls will eat dogs. And I did talk to them a little bit in the chat, but I wonder if that's something you want to touch on.
Okay, yes. So as dogs get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, they're more likely to be prey for owls. So if you're a great horned owl, you eat anything that moves that's in the right size range. So Piper is not going to eat a dog. But a great horned owl, 5 pounds or less, it's totally fair game. Now they're not going to, nice poop, thanks. Stay put, dear. They're not going to purposely seek out dogs. They just kind of go for whatever is handy. And of course, a hungrier owl, stay put, is going to be more desperate and more willing to try something a little more dangerous than an owl that's more confident in the food that it's getting. As you can see, she does like this quite a bit. But if Joe were handling her, totally different ball game. She'd be trying to rip Joe's face off. And then they put their heads down and they shake it back and forth, and that's what they do right before they rip your face off. So it doesn't seem logical, but okay. Oh, so Bob's talking about barn owls being ill-equipped for winter in southern Indiana. Yeah, they're not well equipped for cold weather, so they need to have sheltered places. I saw one in La Crosse, Wisconsin, in pine trees with long-eared owls the end of winter, but it was like in the teens. It was really cold, and I think that barn owl survived. It wasn't found dead in that area, and it was roosting regularly in pine trees. So apparently roosting in pine trees helps in the winter. There was a barn owl in Sax-Zim Bog west of Duluth in January this year. That one did starve to death. Very bad idea for a barn owl to be in northern Minnesota in winter. So it's just real iffy up in colder places like this. Okay, I think we will wrap it up then. Thank you all for joining us. Check in next week for owl feet, and then we'll figure out what we're doing after that. Have a great day, everybody.
So thank you all for joining us. If you like the program, subscribe to our channel, follow us on Facebook, and consider becoming a member. Check out all the links in the description below. Join us next week for our owl chat about owl feet. Be safe, be happy, and thank you for making the world a better place for owls.